Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, January 3rd, 2020. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. Patrick, let's get into the outlook for 2020 defensive backs at Ohio State. Before we do that, I want to let the listeners know what we're hearing. None of this is, absolute gospel. None of this is just absolute etched in stone. But we are hearing Shaun Wade's likely going to announce tomorrow that he's leaving for the NFL. He has his announcement tomorrow in Jacksonville, his hometown. And we're hearing he's probably going to announce he's turning pro. That doesn't surprise me at all. And in regard to who's going to replace Jeff Hafley, we're hearing it's probably going to be Carrie Combs. Again, none of this is for sure. Just want to let the listeners know what we're hearing there. So it sounds like Carrie Combs is going to come back to Ohio State with a different role this time. We'll still be coaching the DBs, but we'll have a little extra on his plate if it materializes. Of course, the Tennessee Titans are still in the playoffs. They play the New England Patriots on Saturday. Nothing will happen until after the Titans season is over. And again, nothing is for sure at this point, but it does sound like Kerry Combs will be back with the Buckeyes. All right, Patrick, after that long preamble, 2020 defensive backs, Buckeyes are going to lose all four starters, assuming Shaun Wade leaves tomorrow. I mean, that is not a good situation. They do have talent behind those guys, but just what's your outlook for 2020 DBs as we sit here right now?
It's certainly going to be interesting. I mean, we've seen Ohio State teams, Ohio State defenses over the past lose talent, but I was trying to think back if I've ever seen an entire secondary leave, especially one as productive as this. I think coming into the year, we knew that they would certainly lose Jordan Fuller. They would lose Damon Arnett. Both those guys are out of eligibility. We figured Jeff Okudah would have the type of year that would make him a highly sought-after NFL draft prospect. But Shaun Wade was kind of the guy that we expected, just regardless to be a part of this backfield next year, this defensive backfield. And then he had the season he had. And, you can argue whether or not it would be worth Shaun Wade to come back. And we'll, like you said, we'll find out for sure on Saturday. But, he played well enough that I certainly think, he can go pro and will be a high draft pick. I don't know if he'll be as high as if he came back, but that decision's ultimately up to him and his family. In terms of what that means for Ohio State, it means they've got a lot of work to do. Whether it's Carrie Combs or anyone that they hire to coach these defensive backs, we saw these guys play at points this year. Amir Reep came in the Fiesta Bowl and was okay. He's, I think he's still a little bit too handsy. You see the penalties. Cameron Bound, Sevyn Banks, those are guys that we saw at points, the Michigan game specifically when Shaun Wade was out and they were kind of thrust into that position, and it was up and down. And you expect that with defensive backs. Now, I will say, you go back and Denzel Ward's a guy that you can use as an example. Gary Conley, another one who when they first came into had to step into kind of big moments early on in their career. Maybe didn't play as well as they ended up being later in their career when they had a whole, off season to develop like these guys will. So I think you can kind of take what you saw from these guys this season, these younger defensive backs, and judge based on that, but realize that they will have a full off season to settle into a role and not just be thrust into it, in a game week, and really kind of develop into that position. And there was a reason these guys are at Ohio State. I have confidence in the coaches that are already there, as well as whoever, be it Kerry Combs or anyone else, Ryan Day hires to continue to develop. Now, will it be this secondary we saw this year? Maybe, maybe not. There's also Josh Proctor, who we haven't mentioned, who will step in. And I thought he looked good at times, but again, a guy who just doesn't have a ton of experience yet. Jordan Fuller was a multi-year starter and a rare talent. So, yes, it'll be very crucial this offseason for these guys, these young defensive backs, to take that next step and really prepare themselves to be starters next year, because assuming, as you said, that we're hearing that Shaun Wade probably is going to head to the pros, they're going to need it. Everybody will be gone, so these guys have to step up.
Presuming that it is Kerry Combs that Ryan Day has selected Carrie Combs. Carrie Combs has accepted the job behind closed doors here, and they're just waiting for the Titans season to end. Presuming that is the deal, what is your thoughts on Kerry Combs returning to Ohio State in a bigger role?
I kind of have mixed feelings about it because when he was here the first time, obviously there was a lot of defensive success, but it was in a very different system. It was with the Chris Ash system of the press man and corners playing up on wide receivers and whatnot. And now they've switched to this cover one, cover three, one high safety look, which is something that not a lot of teams do. It was part of the reason Jeff Hafley and Greg Madison were brought in here was because they had experience and understanding with that. So, obviously Greg Madison remains. He was the defensive coordinator, one of the defensive coordinators this past year. So that'll help in terms of continuity. But if they plan on using that same defensive approach again, which Ryan Day says, this was a defense he wanted to use and he went out and got guys that could coach that way, then Kerry Combs is going to have to adjust. This is not something from the little that I've watched of the Titans this year. I don't believe they play a ton of these looks. With that said, I think that Kerry Combs is a good enough coach to adjust to whatever is asked of him, especially when other guys around him have a year or even longer coaching in that system. And Matt Barnes, another guy who we don't talk about a lot, but is an assistant secondary coach and spent a year working with this system. So Kerry Combs, assuming he can adjust to the way they want to play, and this is assuming that they do stick with it, if the personnel allows them to stick with this cover one, cover three approach, I think he'll be good otherwise. We saw the way that they produced NFL talent under Kerry Combs. We saw the way they recruited talented guys under Kerry Combs. Those are both crucial things going forward. Now he's spent some time in the NFL. I'm sure he's learned some new tricks. That's another thing that he can bring to recruiting and coaching these defensive backs. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I'm going to want to see how he handles these defensive backs in a different system. But, I trust that, Ryan Day's done his homework. He's not just bringing Kerry back because Kerry's coached here before and whatnot. So, he said last year with Jeff Hafley that he was going to go get the best defensive backs coach in America. And when it was announced that Jeff Hafley was the guy, I looked at the success of the San Francisco 49ers while he was there and was like, well, this is a strange hire. And so at least this time I am aware of who Kerry Combs is and know what he can do. So, let's trust Ryan Day on this one, I think is ultimately where I sit.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day has definitely proven that he gets the benefit of the doubt on pretty much everything in my book, certainly in putting together a coaching staff. I'm a big fan of all things Ryan Day, and I just completely trust the man. Like you said, he's not just bringing Kerry Combs in because he has familiarity with them and because he coached at Ohio State. He definitely, feels like Kerry Combs is the best man for the job. Speaking of new coaches, this one we don't have to speculate on. Corey Dennis, promoted from quality control coach to quarterbacks coach. There's going to be some fans out there that are like, come on, this is, more of the, Bill Davis was the best man. Now you got Urban Meyer's son-in-law at coaching. But Corey Dennis has had to work his way up. I remember talking to Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins, I'm sure you did too, gushed about Corey Dennis. Justin Fields is not quite as, he doesn't really gush about anything, but he was very complimentary of Corey Dennis. So that says a lot to me. And again, I trust Ryan Day completely, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. Your thoughts on Corey Dennis getting the promotion?
I like this hire. They could have gone out and brought in a name and whatnot. But let's remember, part of the reason that Mike Yurcich is leaving is because he wanted to be more involved in the offense. And you have Ryan Day, who, obviously former offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. You have Kevin Wilson, who is very much a part of helping him run the offense. And Mike Yurcich was also involved. But, when you have three guys in the room that, all expect to be involved in the play calling and designing everything and whatnot, and maybe feel like they should have a bigger role, you can have some issues. And I'm not saying that Ohio State did. Obviously the offense was great this year, but bringing in a guy who maybe doesn't expect as much, but has been in the system, has worked directly under Ryan Day. He was the senior quality control coach for quarterbacks under Day when Day was the quarterbacks coach, a guy that, as you mentioned, two pretty good quarterbacks, two Heisman finalists. Trust have, the Haskins quote that I keep seeing going around was from his Heisman finalist year, where he said, when Ryan Day isn't around, Corey Dennis is essentially his quarterback's coach. They watch film together, and he really appreciated what Corey Dennis was able to do to help him develop. And I think, from everything I understand, Justin Fields was very reliant on him last offseason to kind of get up to speed in this Ohio State offense. So I think that plus the fact that Corey Dennis was already highly sought after, we know about the Colorado State job that Ryan Day all but said he was going to accept, didn't want to let the cat out of the bag there, but he was on his way to Colorado State from my understanding, and then this Mike Yurcich stuff happened, and Ohio State was able to kind of grab him at the door and, hey, would you want to stay around here for a little bit? And obviously the chance to remain in Columbus, stay at Ohio, place like Ohio State, and work with Ryan Day and the staff more was too good to pass up. So I like this hire a lot. I think that you're going to learn what Corey Dennis is, and he's going to have to very much evolve from a quality control coach. But you have kind of the ultimate insurance policy in Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson, who are really the guys who are going to run this offense. While Ryan Day has to work with all areas of the team, he's still very much involved with the quarterbacks, and this is a guy you trust. And again, like we kind of said with the defensive side of the ball, we trust Ryan Day until he proves otherwise, and thus far he hasn't. So Corey Dennis is a guy, a grinder, who's worked his way up. Yes, he certainly got his foot in the door because he was dating and then married Urban Meyer's daughter. So that probably sped things up quite a bit, but you see that all over football. And just because there have been examples where it doesn't work, there are plenty of examples where it does. And, like I said, I think they're in good shape with how the system is set up in terms of the coaching staff ranks, and Corey Dennis will fit in. We know that he's already fit in with the staff.
Great insights from Patrick Murphy. Really appreciate it, Patrick. And thanks to our listeners out there for tuning in to the show. Again, tomorrow could be a relatively big day for Buckeye coverage, so keep it locked to Bucknuts as usual. Thanks again to Patrick, and thanks to all the listeners. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag. Best damn band in the land.